Draper City Talk is a podcast produced by the municipal government of Draper City, Utah, where we discuss local government services and issues and the community at large. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mayor Troy Walker. Welcome back to Draper Talk. Folks, today we have a great discussion. It's something you're going to be interested in because it is very interesting. I have with me today Captain Brian Garn, Draper City Fire, and Parker Hansen, who I guess we will call you a Wildland Firefighter Supervisor. Is that your title?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
Fuels Crew Wildland Supervisor.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for coming from our Draper City Fire Department. You guys are the best there are in the world, so we know we're glad to have you.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today about what has been in the news all summer, or at least all winter, I guess I should say, not summer, but winter. Feels like it should have been the summer for the fire in California, but it was winter fire, Santa Ana's and fire. So, folks, as you know, our fire department, along with other fire departments in the state and the Unified Fire Authority, we deployed firefighters to California to work and support the state of California in fighting the fires in Los Angeles. That was and we've done other deployments. Before we get to that, though, let me let you guys just briefly tell us, Captain, tell us your background, how long you've been a firefighter, that kind of stuff.
I've been a career firefighter for just over 16 years. I've been with Draper since the beginning. I previously was at South Salt Lake.
An
before.
OG. Excellent.
Yep.
All right.
From the start.
Okay.
And I did wildland before up where I live too. I live north of here up in Box Elder County. So we did a lot of wildland fires up there. They still do. So come down here. And when I come to Draper, that was what we got on the wildland stuff and helped with that side. And
what made you want to be a firefighter?
My father did it in town. Like, we had a volunteer department, so we were there. So when I was younger, I'd go with him, and then the fire chief one day is like, "Well, why don't you join out of high school?"
So you always wanted to be a firefighter?
Yeah, I always liked doing it. And we had a farm, and he'd leave the farm to go when the pager would go off, we'd go help. So
you're living your childhood dream and doing exactly what you want to do. That's awesome. All right, Parker, you're younger, but you look like you're ready for it. Tell us why are you a firefighter? And tell us your story about becoming one.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed the outdoors. Knew that I wanted to work in a career field that involved being outside. I believe it was my sophomore year of high school. I had a science teacher who told us about wildland firefighting. It's a job that he would do during the summer when he wasn't teaching. And that's where my interest began. And then right outside of high school, immediately upon graduating, I got a job with the Hurricane Valley Fire District and been working in the field since then.
So you wanted to be a wildland firefighter?
Yep.
Like smoke jumper, was that something you wanted to do, or did you ever do that?
Yeah, my main goal was to be a hot shot.
Okay.
And I was able to do that for 2 years.
Okay. So did you parachute into fires?
No, I didn't do that. So those are the smoke jumpers.
Okay, all right.
But hot shots do a similar job, but it's a crew comprised of 20 people, roughly, and they're the ones going out, digging lines, doing a lot of the brunt labor. So
it's a hard job.
Yeah.
It's a physical, demanding job.
Very.
Okay. So you're young, strong, look like you can do it. You were probably good at it, I would imagine. How long have you been with Draper City?
I've been with Draper City for going on 2 years.
Okay. All right. If I remember, we kind of brought you on as an intern, didn't we? As a cruise worker in the summer, right?
Yep.
And then you've sort of moved your way up, right?
Correct.
Are you a paramedic now? Or are you working on that? Or
not paramedic, advanced EMT.
Okay.
So just under paramedic.
Okay. And your duties are, what are your daily duties in Draper?
Yeah. So I supervise our seasonal fuels crew, who we employ from roughly May to October. And we do a lot of mitigation work up on the hill, the foothills of Draper, just removing all the hazardous vegetation, the overgrown brush and whatnot.
Okay. We're going to talk a little bit about that because residents need to know about that. And you guys are doing amazing work. Captain Garn, tell us about, so first of all, when a state like California, or, we've had other states, Oregon, Nevada, California, am I missing any in the recent times?
No.
But let's say another state has a big fire. what happens? How do we get involved in it, and why?
So we're put on so the California one, to be example, because it's easy to explain, is called an EMAC. It's a Emergency Mutual Aid Compact that the state's put into, and we put our resources on there. So when they have something like what happened in L.A. they can pull that up and say, hey, they'll send an order to the state of Utah to the emergency management office, and then the state looks at who's available and who can send people, and they'll call us and be like, are you available? This is what we have needing to go. And they'll send everything that we're going to send and all that. It's a quick process for those.
So it's a computerized process where they know what kind of equipment we have, what kind of training we have, what kind of experience we have, and then we're in a state system. California can go and say, we need this type of firefighter, this type of fire equipment, this type of experience, and then they match.
Yeah. So they'll tell us what they want, and they'll say, can you fill our order? And then our state looks at all that and says, yep, this is what we can send you. Are you okay with this? And what we're sending, and it meets everything you need and the cost, and then they get the go ahead, yes or no.
And the reason we do it is because a couple of reasons. First reason is we want to help our neighbors, because we might need their help sometime.
Yes.
And I can't think off the top of my head of a time recently where we've had California firefighters here or not, but maybe you can. I don't know. It's been a while, probably.
It's not been. Yeah, it's been a little while since we had a big fire that anywhere near us that we've needed that.
But the mutual agreement is that we all help each other, and then of course the other reason we go is this is how you train. This is how you learn how to do it, right? So you want to train your guys. You want to train this young man to make sure he's up to snuff and knows how to fight a wildland fire in Draper. And what better way to get experience than go down and fight one, right?
Yep. That's what we do for training and help them out, and we get trained at the same time.
And we get paid a little bit of money to do it, right?
They have to cover. Yeah, we get our costs covered to help. Can't do it for free.
That's right. So let's talk a little bit about that. So California obviously got into an absolutely insane fire situation in Los Angeles, and the call went out. Maybe give us a rundown of how it went down.
So we got the call, I think it was a Wednesday. I got the message that they sent in a request. And I don't watch the news a lot when I'm not at work. So I didn't really know.
You're not even paying attention.
I wasn't really knowing what was going on. My kids all of a sudden told me about it from TikTok. Imagine that. So I got a call say, hey, we have a request. We need to see what we can do for staffing and fill it. So that was a Wednesday morning.
Okay. Wednesday you get the call.
And so we, between Chief Smith and us on the Wildland side, of figuring out who can go and actually can go, and then what we can send out, make sure we can still staff our coverage here in the city.
Is it a volunteer thing? Do you ask for firefighters to volunteer?
We have a list of guys that sign up that we run every year. And so they cover the guys who are gone, the other guys do, and then we rotate turns of whose turn it is to go out.
So from the call to the time we were on the road, how many days?
We were on the road the next morning at, 7:30 a.m.?
Not even days.
It wasn't even a full day. It wasn't
Hours.
until 8 o'clock that night that we knew that we were going to be going. It was in limbo from 11 a.m. until till 8 p.m. that night to know that they accepted us. We were actually going to leave, and we had to meet at the Maverick Center at 7 o'clock that next morning.
And there were a number of departments that went. Do you know off the top of your head who all went?
So Sandy City went, Salt Lake City, West Valley, South Jordan, West Jordan. We did. Orem went. Unified Fire went. They also grabbed one. We had a Moab engine, Cedar City engine, and I think there was 7. If they told us right, it was 17 engines out of Utah that went down.
Decent group.
Yeah,
that's very good. Okay, so you drive out there, you get checked in. Tell us about Parker. Did you go on this?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were out there. You were you fought this fire.
Yep.
Okay. So Parker, tell me about day one. What happens when you get there?
So it takes a little bit of time to get checked in. That's the first thing you do when you arrive on scene, is go through the whole check-in process. They make sure all the trucks are sound, good to go mechanically, that you have all the equipment, whatnot. We waited quite a bit to get checked in on this fire just because there was so many resources responding. It took a while. And I believe we got to work that night that we got there. And we worked a 40-hour shift through the night, through the following day. So it was kind of a unique situation there, just going straight into working a 40-hour shift. Typically, you get checked in, then you'll be off the line. You'll be done working for the night. But in California, they do 24-hour shifts. And just the way that it worked out, we did a 40-hour shift.
So where did you go? What was the first shift? Where in the fire were you? Were right down? Were you in? I'm not even sure where all of it was. But where were you guys at? Where'd you go first?
Trying to think of the
Yeah, I can't
community
remember the area.
We were on the kind of north and east of Brentwood.
Brentwood, yeah.
Is where we were at that night.
Describe it for us. What was it like? It looked like absolute like pandemonium chaos on TV. Was that what it was like?
Driving in, so we had a 3-hour drive from where we checked in to get to the fire, and all you saw was the glow. Once you got up in there, you could see it. And it was just huge. Like it was not laid down at night. It was just running hard,
And the wind was blowing.
Wind was moving. Helicopters were flying. Like they were working. And so we got to a staging area, and then they moved us up into a neighborhood.
Like a neighborhood like in Draper. Like,
just
like
up,
steeplechase. Like
just
someplace
up
on
just like
Suncrest.
that. Just it had an end road, so we went in, and we were structure protection. It was over the ridge from us, so we weren't on the direct fire line, but they wanted us to be prepared if it did come over the ridge, how we were going to defend and what we could defend in that neighborhood.
So it looked like to me, and I'm, of course, just the mayor, not a firefighter, but it looked like to me they were battling, and then, of course, now you guys were battling the age-old problem, which is undergrowth, maybe unchecked undergrowth that had been growing for a long time, and it was in close proximity to these structures. Am I right there? Is that what the area was like?
There was a lot of heavy grass and growth that was there, and it was up against structures.
Is that something when you got there? What did you think when you saw that, Parker? What did you think? They need a mitigation crew, or what did you think?
Yeah, but just seeing the terrain, how steep it is, and there's homes right up against the edge of the mountains, it's almost in some spots impossible to do that mitigation work. Not in all areas.
And that's because the houses were built in a way that they were just right in it, and there was no way to get out of it.
Correct. And there's just so much. I mean, you could see maybe they had done a little bit of mitigation work in areas, but there's just so much. The amount of vegetation is so dense that it's a never-ending work.
They'd have to just be constantly doing it to make it work.
Yep.
Okay. So you're at the end of some cul-de-sac or end of a road. What were you? Were you going to defend homes? Is that what the goal was?
Yeah,
Well,
we were
so
there.
how are you going to do it? What's the process?
We went
Was
to
there
the end.
water? And we've been here, and there was no water.
We had water where we were at. We checked hydrants as we went along.
Okay.
And we did find a few dry ones in different neighborhoods.
But that happens anywhere.
Yeah. But there was water in the hydrants. So we set up at the end, and we go in and we look at the structure, see what's surrounding it, how close that vegetation is. Ultimately, if we can remove vegetation away from the home to clear some of that area to help that if it does come to us.
So you guys are out there with your tools and looking at stuff, foliage touching the houses, where you're cutting stuff down, chainsawing stuff down. Is that accurate?
If it needs to be, yeah.
Okay, so that was part of the defense.
Yep. We've been ready to set up hose lines up and prepare and wait.
What happened on that night? Did the fire come over to that neighborhood?
Nope. We didn't. The winds kept it away, so we just staged in that area that night, all of us, until the morning when they did a crew transition. They moved us out and then sent us to a different neighborhood.
Was the wind constantly blowing that night?
That night wasn't that bad.
Wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Could you feel the heat from it?
No.
Okay. It's far enough away you couldn't.
Yeah.
But
The
you could
glow
see
was
it,
there.
obviously.
You could see the
Okay.
glow, and it was hard to see that night. We went so far and around it, you're like getting your bearings in the dark was
Gotcha.
hard.
So after that neighborhood, like the next day or the day after, you went somewhere else. I guess, just give us the most interesting story you've got from that deployment, from fighting that fire. Maybe that's a way to do it.
I think our next day, that morning we figured we'd be going off the line because we come in late, but they usually run 24s. And our task force leaders came back and said, they're moving us to another neighborhood. We need to go in and protect these homes. So they moved us up into Brentwood, which is a nice neighborhood. And so we went up there and got into a cul-de-sac on a street, and we had all of us spaced out. And they said, we're going to protect the homes. And the fire was across the canyon from us.
So you could see that fire.
We could see the fire. We knew the winds were heavy. They were burning down the canyon pretty hard.
Ambers in the air, all that.
Not on our side. It kept us, luckily that day, the wind kept it away from us. We were waiting for the wind shift. And so we got hoses out. We laid our hoses out, checked did assessments of the homes that we had. There was hand crews above us working from in a different task force, but we were there set up. The hydrants had water, so we were good there. And luckily, the helicopters and they had the air tankers coming in doing retardant drops like all day,
all around you guys,
all around. They just hit that fire hard that day, and the wind luckily didn't shift, but it backed down into the canyon against some homes, and there's some crews in the bottom that kept it out of the homes. We did watch a few that did catch on fire as we were.
Did you guys on that day? Did you actually put out any house fires? Were you putting water on anything, or were you just working?
We were all
defending?
ready to.
Okay.
Waiting for it to come to us.
All right. And then, so, how many days were you there?
We were there until that night late.
Yep.
Okay. And then how many days total on the deployment?
Was it 18?
18 days.
Were you guys working with other Utah crews as
Yes.
well? Was that kind of how they did it? They put the Utah folks together?
Yep. We had 3 task force, Utah task force, and we were part of task force 1.
Okay.
So there was 4 other engines in that group.
Okay. Did you guys get right into fighting the fires at any point in your deployment? Were you right in on the fire?
Not necessarily. So I think to kind of clear up the picture, when the fire started, it had burned its course really fast within the first day or 2. And then I believe we got there day 3 or 4 of the incident. And by then, the fire activity was kind of starting to subside a little bit. It was still burning, but I think most of the structures that were lost within the first 24 hours.
Wow.
So,
okay.
yeah.
So most of those homes went down in the first 24 hours.
24 to 48.
Wow.
So when we got there, it was more so kind of just catching the sides of the fire that weren't burning as intensely, and then doing any mop-up work, which is going in behind the fire, putting out hot spots, extinguishing smoke, anything remaining.
And that let Cal Fire go fight the still burning fire. So is that kind of how they deployed you guys, to back them up so you could do that important defense work at the beginning or mop up work?
Yeah, we're just there for whatever they need us to do.
Go in there. So the aerials, I mean, we saw these, film videos of helicopters. Tell us about that. Is that pretty awesome to watch? 747 dropping.
It was incredible to watch. I mean, and just how many was going and how fast their turnaround was. Like, they kept working at it because that was the thing that kept the fire in check as best they could.
And you saw the big 747s,
Right
DC-10s, all of them.
Yep.
Yeah. Did it make you want to become a firefighter pilot, partner?
Not necessarily. I've thought about it before.
It did me.
But yeah, when I was a hotshot, I was in California, Northern California, and saw a lot of similar activity as far as air resources and whatnot, similar fires. But I would say this was the biggest, if you want to call it an air show, that I've ever seen. The most amount of aircraft flying at one time. I mean, I've seen a lot, but this was impressive. It was something different.
Did you guys get to, did you see where all the destruction was? Was it visible? It's close by. I mean, you could see.
Later on in our deployment, we were through the neighborhoods that were, our last couple of days, 24-hour shifts were in those neighborhoods where the homes were just gone.
And what were you doing there?
So we would go back and do home assessments. They had a problem with a couple of days after the fire that they would have smoldering embers that were up in homes that would start up just random, just start burning. And so we would go back in and we would check those homes. And then at that point, later in the end of it, residents were starting to come back in. They were starting to let a few come into their properties, and then they wanted them out that night. So we were there to support them. Okay. Anything they needed, if it was just, we helped do some window covers of a house that didn't get burned down, but they had some broken windows. So we got some tarps with them and helped kind of nail them up because it was supposed to get rain that weekend.
Gotcha. Must have been just unbelievable for these poor folks to come back to see their homes completely.
Yeah, it's indescribable.
Rubble, right?
Yeah.
And it was neighborhoods, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't, I'll put you on the expert spot. You hear all this anecdotal stuff about what was the problems were. What could they have done in that area to maybe prevent it? Because I want to talk now about what we're doing here to prevent that type of destruction in our community, in our wildland interface. So maybe, do you guys have an opinion? And I know you're not, you're not the end, but you've been a firefighter a long time. Parker, you've been a hotshot. You've been in these. What could they have done differently, or is it just how their neighborhoods are? What's your 2 cents on that?
think so, it's kind of like some more mitigation work. I think that's been a lack all across the country of mitigation's been a kind of an overlooked thing, and it's building steam, especially now.
Right.
We've been doing that for years up in Draper. That's one of our things we look at. So I think that would have helped, some of it to slow it down. And then other part of it is looking at the devastation that what we saw. And it was just some of it that I don't think they ever could have prepared for fully what they got.
Because it was so fast, so hot.
Yeah.
And it was one house to the next, and it was just...
Yes. It was intense, and you can't go into a neighborhood and 5 homes are on fire, and then you try to pick which one you're going to put out.
Right.
They triaged and moved through, and what was they could stop, they would stop. The rest, they couldn't do anything more about, unfortunately.
How did they get the people out? I mean, it's amazing there wasn't more loss of life, but how do they get folks out of there?
With the neighborhood, everybody probably saw the famous dozer picture of pushing cars.
Uh-huh.
We went right through. The cars were still there when we were there. There was still a car up the road driving down the wrong side with its flashers on. People just got out and ran. Just
literally running for their lives.
Yep, that's literally, and you just look at that. It's a humbling experience. Like, wow, like to see this, like how would it have been if it was when that was going on?
Wow. So Parker, did all your crew that went, did they learn a lot on this one?
Yeah, I think there was a lot to learn. Like I said, we did some mop-up work, got into some pretty steep terrain, and were able to do some work, call in helicopters, work with air resources a little bit. So there was a lot of good training that people were able to, do things for the first time and work as a group, working as a task force. Also, some of the other crews that we deployed with, the other departments, had a lot of guys who this was their very first time going on a wildfire. So there was a lot of sharing of knowledge, teaching, and whatnot.
You got the Pulaskis out and went out there and
Yep.
and worked them. And okay. I got to use one of those once on a trail building thing, so that's why I remember it. But let's talk a little bit about Draper now, because, of course, obviously we talked about we want you guys to go out and do this because it helps people that need help, too. It trains you and gets people ready. If you say a whole bunch of these firefighters their first time, now it's not. Now they'll be ready for a fire. Come around, right? That's one of the main benefits. So let's talk about Draper, because Parker, you just did a presentation to the city council just this week, Tuesday.
Yep.
And you were telling the council what we're doing in Draper, because we have wildland urban interface, or urban wildland interface. That's probably the right way to say it. Not every city has that, but cities that have houses in the wildland, Corner Canyon, Steeplechase, up on top of Corner Canyon, down the backside, some of those things. So we have that in our community, and we know it. We love our trails. We love that oak. We love all that underbrush that's on the trails. But when you talk about mitigation, that's what you're doing. You're mitigating all that undergrowth to make it so it's not just a great fuel source, right, for a fire to just build in.
Correct.
So tell our audience a little bit, what are we doing in Draper?
Right. So we have a fuels crew that goes out and does the work. This last year we had 5 crew members, and so it's a lot of chainsaw work, a lot of manual labor, running chainsaws, cutting down overgrown brush, dead vegetation, also creating more space between homes, creating defensible space. We try to be strategic with where we do the work.
So let's talk about that. That defensible space is important. What does that mean? I got a house sitting in the scrub oak. What is defensible space to my house? If I'm sitting right in that scrub oak, or gamble oak, I think is the proper term, whatever.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's the space between your home and then the wildland, the brush. And it really is any sort of vegetation, whether it's natural or something that's been planted, And the recommendation is a clearing of 30 feet from your home.
Okay, so what you want, in your expert opinion, is someone's got to have 30 feet of clear space from vegetation, the edge of the vegetation, to their actual structure.
Correct.
That includes a shed or any other structure, right? Any structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's defensible space.
Yep.
Why does that make a difference? Why is it 30 feet?
Well, really, when we get these wildfires, there's so many factors that play into the intensity of the fire. You have the weather, the wind, topography. When those things align, you can expect really intense fire behavior. You can expect flame lengths to be increased. And that distance is just keeping the structure from being impinged by flames.
So you might have flame lengths that are 20 feet. If you got 30 feet of space, then you got 10 feet of no flame into your house. Okay.
You could always be more than 30 feet, but that's at least the minimum.
But if the resident said, hey, I don't want my house to burn down, or I want to do everything I can to prevent my house from burning down in a fire, you'd come up, you'd look at it, you'd give them an assessment, and you would say 30 feet. That's
as
what
a
you
minimum.
need. Okay.
And that's bare minimum. And then beyond that 30 feet, you can do more work too. If you have vegetation, you can limit up from the ground. So just pruning 6 to 10 feet above the ground, any branches. And
so keep clear space underneath the canopy of trees or whatever you got
And
going.
then if the vegetation's growing super dense, there's a lot of trees next to each other. You can go in and cut some of them out to increase that crown spacing so that the fire doesn't spread as easily from one tree or shrub to the other.
And what our fields crew is doing, you're going out in our open space and you're doing that.
Yep.
You're thinning out the trees.
Exactly.
You're pruning it up. You're clearing the underbrush. What do you do with all the branches? Tell us about some of the equipment that we have.
Yeah. So like I said, we have chainsaws, and it depends where we're working. If we have a skid steer that has a mulching head on it, and that's a pretty awesome piece of machinery that we can utilize to get a lot of work done. So we'll drive that into areas that we can access, and it just mulches up all the vegetation into wood chips pretty much. But in the steeper areas where we can't get the skid steer, the chainsaw crews will go in, cut all the brush, and then they stack piles. And we'll let those piles sit for a year to 2 years to cure and dry out. And then when the conditions are favorable, we'll go in the following winter and burn those piles.
Okay. We've been doing this for how long?
I believe the fall of 2023 was the first time that we did it. So two years now.
Okay. 2 years of just really with real pointed fire, wildland, urban interface protection of our residents. So, all right. Well, can a resident call the fire department that lives up there or wants to get defensible space or wants information? How do we get information out to our residents about what they can do to protect their homes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
they can call.
What's that?
They can call the fire station.
Yeah. We get a lot of requests for people who are wanting those recommendations. So I'll go out there, or one of the on-duty crews will go out, speak with the homeowners, provide a homeowner assessment, and give those recommendations.
And that's free.
Yeah.
That's just free to any citizen we have. Okay. How are we doing? Are people doing it? Has this gotten the attention of folks that are in that area?
I think we're doing great. Definitely seeing a lot of growth and progress. Like I said, I've been with Draper for 2 years, and I know the fuels crew was present before I came here. I think it's been around pretty much since.
I think we've been doing it since the beginning, actually. We're pretty close.
Right after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember one of the only time I've done this as mayor, evacuating one of the Suncrest neighborhoods down on the Utah County side. Of course, Chief Smith was out of town because that's when all this stuff happens.
Oh.
When the fire chief goes out of town, I'm always thinking something is going to happen because it always does. The storms. This fire was that Lehigh fire.
The Traverse Fire.
Yeah, started by those fireworks, I'm going to add. So I want to reiterate fireworks, which we don't like in the wildland interface. But I remember being down by that neighborhood and watching that glow like you talked about. And Bart Vaudry was our assistant chief at the time, and he was up on the ridge, and we had a radio, and we were trying to decide if it was time to evacuate the neighborhood or not. And Bart called me on the radio, and I can't repeat the words, specific exact words that Bart said, but it was very clear that there was a situation, and so we evacuated that neighborhood, and then the wind shifted.
Maple Hollow.
Yeah, and then the wind shifted, and it didn't come over the ridge. It looked like, to me, in my untrained eye, that it was minutes from coming over that ridge and burning the whole place down. That's what it looked like to me. Yeah, but that wind shifted, so
It held it.
yeah, it was amazing. But, I thought, well, people are going to be mad we evacuated them to schools and whatnot. But everyone was actually quite pleased that they got the word. And of course, that nothing happened. But so that was interesting for me to be part of that and to see that glow. Because when you said that, I can still see it in my mind's eye. But anyway, anything else you guys want to say in closing?
No, I think the California incidents are just highlighting stuff that we really should have been thinking about years ago that we've been working on.
Yeah.
But I think it's really bringing everybody now of like, can it really happen in our community?
And it can happen so fast, it's hard to even fathom it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're moving. I think our residents, if this will help, they'll look and go, I think it'll awaken some that haven't even thought about it yet. So it'll be progress.
Well, folks, Draper City's finest, two of our best firefighters. These are the kind of people that actually run into fires to help you. They are people that come to your aid, and when it is scary and hot and dangerous. Gentlemen, thank you for your service to our community, for having the guts and courage to do it, because I don't think I have it, and I appreciate that you guys run to a fire. It's always amazed me about firefighters. You're looking to go into the literal fire, which is amazing. So thank you for all your good work, and Parker, your crews, please tell them from us that we are grateful for all the work. And Draper Citizens, we have the best fire department in the country. These guys are good. They do amazing work. We're here to help you, here to serve you. And my last message as we go into the season, while getting close, don't do the fireworks in the ban zone, because that has been the cause of every single fire that's happened since I've been in office. It's been fireworks. So
yep.
I always cringe as we move into the fireworks season. I like to watch them, and we do them at Draper Days, but you don't got to do them in the ban zone. And folks, in closing, we talked about what services we provide in this. On our Draper City website at draperutah.gov/fire, you can get all this information about defensible space. You can get in contact with our fire department, get an assessment of your home, and you can get everything you need to do to help defend your house against hopefully what will never be a wildfire near our homes. So thank you. For timely information about Draper City news, events, traffic alerts, and public safety emergencies, you may subscribe to email or text notifications from Draper City by visiting draperutah.gov/notify, or follow us on social media at Draper City Utah on Facebook, at Draper City on Instagram and X, and at Draper City Gov on YouTube. This has been Draper City Talk. Please join us again.